I have never seen this building before. This is a really cool old warehouse building, and it's for lease apparently. My God. What the hell is that? Am I being marched to an execution? Okay, it stopped. Tell you what, this guy I'm about to tell you about, he probably was on his way to an execution. Oh, check this out. A little bit of steam coming up out of there. Oh God, no. Back to the execution. If I make it out of here alive, this is a new episode of Historic Murders of Portland. Well, I'm hoofing my way towards the area just west of Moda Center, which of course is formerly the Rose Garden, where the Portland Trailblazers play, whatnot. So I need to eventually get kind of over that way. So I got a little ways to walk. But the story I have to bring to you, and it's actually, it's doubly tragic. The event, a murder is always tragic. But, if you look at the life of the person who was the victim, that can add to it. And so what I'm about to bring to you is the incredibly tragic case of a young woman named Emma Sims. Hello everyone, say hello to the Moda Center that I am in the process of passing by. I want to get right over here, and I want to get mowed down in the process though. I think the Blazers have a game tonight. They're still faintly in the playoff race as of this recording. We'll see how things are at the end. I think I need to go this way. Yeah, because there's a yellow line max stop right here, and you get right to the other side of that. At least geographically speaking, because geographically the street that this murder location happened on don't exist anymore. Alright, so you got Moda Center just to our east, Old Memorial Coliseum right over there, the interstate max stop right here, and the location theoretically that I want to get to. Thank God, newspapers from the 1800s, I swear, were better at giving information about where places were located than newspapers now, sometimes. So they give a very detailed description of this location. And it was called the Depot Hotel. So at some time there was a hotel here. Now, of course, this area here, even just like 70 years ago, looked nothing like this. This was all homes. This was all residential for the most part. Some commercial, peppered in, but you go back, this case in particular is from the 1880s. So this was all residential housing, maybe a few saloons, a few hotels, what have you. But the description of the location of this place was approximately 1 block off the Willamette River. And this big, I still don't know what the hell this is, but right on the other side of this is the Willamette River. So we're about, give or take, a block. And so it was a block off the river and on L Street. Now, in the earlier days of Portland, from Ankeny Street north, it was always, the streets were just lettered. There was A Street, B Street, C Street, D Street, so on and so forth. And over time, words were ascribed to those letters, oftentimes named after kind of famous early Portlanders. So A became Ankeny, B became Burnside, C became Cooch, D became Davis, so on and so forth. And L Street, which would have roughly, I lined it up with the street across the river, because L Street became Lovejoy, And Lovejoy is almost directly across the river this way. So L Street would have come through, give or take, right where I'm standing to maybe about 20 feet this way would be roughly where it was. So the Depot Hotel would have been like pretty much right where this parking lot is. And the Depot Hotel had at least some form of an eatery. Maybe it was a full-on restaurant. And Emma Sims worked at the Depot Hotel that was located here as a waitress in that restaurant. And she was simply described in the newspapers as a young, pretty, brunette 22-year-old. That was about how she was described, which that description might lead you to believe that she was just another happy woman getting by. But honestly, back in the day, there weren't really a lot of happy women getting by in Portland. There weren't really a lot of women in Portland this long ago. But based on that general description, Emma Sims, at least her recent life, was anything but a fairy tale. She had only recently moved to Northeast Portland, where we are now. She'd actually been living in Selwood, south of here, for a while with her mother after her fiance died. You know, here's a woman who's only 22 years old. She's already had to endure the death of a fiance. And I think she was just starting to kind of, you know, she probably went home to recover, and then she moved away from home, presumably somewhere in this area. I don't know. She might have been even living at the hotel. I think they did mention that she had a room that she stayed in on her breaks. So she may have just lived at the hotel here. But she was kind of, you know, she'd just gotten a new job. She was, I think, recovering and starting to kind of get her life back together. And sometime in early to mid-April 1886, she got her job here at the Depot Hotel. She'd only been here 3 weeks when the day of March 6th, 1886 came along. It's just another day. Emma Sims was working kind of the morning breakfast rush at the restaurant, and around noontime, or a little afternoon, after the kind of lunch rush came through, she was given a break and she went upstairs to her, again, her room that she seemed to have there. So again, she may have been living there. So she could rest before the dinner rush later on. The dinner rush comes a little bit later, probably around 4 or 5 o'clock, and Emma Sims is nowhere to be found. She seems to be a pretty reliable employee. They're wondering what's going on. The son of the proprietor, who I think also worked in the hotel, obviously at some capacity, him and I believe the barkeep both went upstairs to her room to check on her. Maybe she was sleeping in, who knows. Knocked on the door. There's no answer. They ended up, I believe they had to kick the door in. And when they kicked the door in, they discovered Emma Sims on her bed, dead, gunshot wound through the side of her head that went right through her brain. She probably died almost instantly. And then lying next to her is this random man, also dead from a gunshot wound, point blank, right to the head. Well, it was discovered pretty quickly that this man that was lying dead next to Emma Sims in her room was a guy named Charlie Burgess. Charlie Burgess had been kind of staying off and on at the Depot Hotel for, the newspaper said, like a course of like 2 years. He just like came and went and came and went. And it's very interesting. I think, the story of Emma Sims, as I told you, at least her recent history leading up to this moment was pretty tragic. The death of a fiance, having to go home and live for a while, and just kind of starting to get her life going again, and then she's brutally murdered in such a horrible way. It's a very tragic story. On the flip side, it seems, now I'm merely putting the pieces together as I choose here. I didn't find anything that definitively pointed this out, but one of the things that was strange about this Charlie Burgess guy, who again was just kind of in and out of the hotel that was here, was this was a seemingly kind of down-to-earth, fairly well-adjusted guy who came from not necessarily a well-to-do family, but this guy came from a well-structured family, a family of means. By all accounts, he had a good upbringing, and he was well-educated, which, I mean, this is 1886. If you're a well-structured person and you got a good education, I mean, you've already got a notch up on a lot of people. A lot of people in the city of Portland are, either working, random jobs in the timber industry or on the railroad, or they're making a living, robbing people. So it seemed like this guy had all the pieces in place, and he was a young guy too. I think he was only 25. This guy seemed to have all the pieces in place to have a good life, and yet it seems to me like he was leading the life of almost a transient. He was just kind of coming and going from this hotel. It didn't seem like he had that good of a job, and it seems like this guy had a lot of opportunity and a lot of potential, and he just pissed it all away. And Emma Sims got a job at the hotel. He again frequented the place, and it seems, the moment he met Emma Sims, he either met her, in the hall when he came down to eat something. He immediately became enamored of her. I don't know, maybe he found a purpose in life again. And he became very, very obsessed, very enamored of her. And this was, an approach to Emma Sims that she just was not reciprocating the affection. And again, it didn't say in the papers how long it had been since her fiance had died, but it may have not been all that long ago. So she may have been in a position to where the last thing in the world she wanted was romance. The last thing in the world she wanted was another relationship. She may have also just been skeeved out by the guy. She only had been working here 3 weeks, and obviously the resistances to Charlie Burgess became too much for him to handle in whatever capacity that would be. And, again, he came and went from the hotel, so no one would be suspicious about him being there. And when Emma Sims went up for her meal break, he ultimately ended up there too. Now, again, it was a little after noon that she went up for her break, and there was, I get so, I know it's another time, but so many murder cases, I hear this type of thing, and I'm like, what the hell were you thinking? There was a person who worked in the hotel, like pretty much nobody heard. Obviously, at least 2 gunshots were fired. One shot into Emma Sims, one shot Burgess to his own head. There was an employee in the building, like nobody else really heard these shots. There was one employee in the building that heard what he thought were 2 distinct gunshots. Did nothing, didn't report it. And I'm like, dude, there's gunshots potentially happening in the building you work. How do you ignore that? But the guy did. He ignored it. I don't know how. If I start hearing gunfire in my place of work, I'd be like, everybody get the F out. And this employee said that the shooting happened sometime between 2 and 3 p.m. And again, Emma Sims is last seen alive a little after noon, gets to be pushing 5 o'clock, the dinner rush before her body is discovered in her room with Charlie Burgess. So yeah, it seems he came in there at some point. It was probably the classic, I'm giving you one more shot to be with me, and if not, something bad's gonna happen. And she resisted him again. That's what seems to have happened. And it looks like it was a very quick death. They probably both died almost instantaneously. I mean, gunshot to the head, you don't walk away from that. And something that I read, which would just add to, the unfortunate nature of what it seems Charlie Burgess became as a person. I mean, like so many other people who became alcoholics. He apparently started drinking more as time went on. Probably, again, you know, he seems to be leading an unfulfilling life. He's bouncing around. You're kind of unhappy in your life. You didn't reach your fulfillment. You start boozing it up a little bit. I mean, it happens a lot. And they spoke to people that knew Charlie Burgess, and they said that he particularly became fond of absinthe. He was an absinthe addict, so to speak. And he just drank that stuff continuously. And they said that when he drank enough of it, he would just get straight up, out of his mind, delirious, maniacal, off his damn rocker. He would go to another place. And so people are wondering if he was, you know, maybe he's at the restaurant in the hotel while he's staying there. Sees Emma Sims walking around working. He's just like, why won't you love me? And he starts sucking. I don't know if anybody actually witnessed him drinking there. He may have drank somewhere else and showed up at the hotel later. But whatever the case, people theorize that maybe he started sucking down some booze. And he went to that other place. Had a gun on him. A lot of people had guns on them in Portland in the 1880s. And he went to Emma Sims's room. And, you know, not in his right mind, may have killed her. God, speaking of tragedies, further tragedies, there's a Concordia University advertisement painted on here. Join us in building a better future, Concordia University. Concordia University just announced a couple of weeks ago that they're closing at the end of this spring term. I need to get rid of that. They're going to confuse people. So that's kind of the main theory that people are going with, is that Charlie Burgess probably started chugging down the booze and just snapped. Went and killed Emma Sims, a woman who was seemingly finally getting her life back on track. So it's a real tragic story of two people who had suffered to some degree. One who was trying to get things together the right way, and another one who chose to put things together the wrong way. And that's really the beginning and the end of that story. A very tragic story from, again, it would have been like right here. These railroad lines have gone through here forever. I think even back, well, maybe not that far back. Maybe there were railroad lines coming through here in the 1880s, but probably along this bluff, possibly. Because again, there's the Max line. I was right over there. Right along this bluff is about where the hotel would have been in relation to Moda Center over here. And then you look over here, you can cross the steel bridge and get over into downtown. But see, again, the Willamette River's right here. They said the hotel was about a block off the river on L Street right there, where Emma Sims was murdered. So all that said, I want to thank you so much again for watching another episode in this series, a very old one, from the spring of 1886. Not that it was a positive story. And as always, remember to like, share. Oh my God, it's a lipstick. I thought that was a big shell casing at first. Whew! And anyway, what was I saying? I don't know. That distracted me. Oh yeah, I was doing my send-off. As always, remember to like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, comment, hit up my Patreon, and till next time, everybody. This has been Steve, the Amateur Historian, and I will see you next time.